And I'm really happy to present the next speaker for today. That's Anton Arhipov. And that's probably one of my favorite talks, IntelliJ tips and tricks. And I'm sure that's even if you use IntelliJ for many years, you're going to learn something new today. And to prove this point, we have one of the most experienced users of IntelliJ in this audience, Tagir. And are you here to learn some IntelliJ tips and tricks? Yes, very good. So it's going to be fun. And
I hope so.
I'm sure that all of you are going to learn some new tips and tricks.
Yeah,
with that,
my goal today is that you learn at least one useful thing that you can use tomorrow. My name is Anton. Hello. I'm a developer advocate in Kotlin team. And well, don't be like upset with me that I will be showing Java instead of Kotlin, because there are much more interesting features implemented for Java, because the language is not that fancy, and the support was implemented by a very awesome person sitting in the back, Tagir. So I will show you a few tricks that Tagir implemented just recently. So I hope it will be interesting. And I've been using IntelliJ for 19 years now, since 2004. But I joined the company just 6 years ago, and for all these years, I have been actually a kind of external advocate for the tool. So I was building enterprise applications. In 2010, I switched into building tooling for Java developers, but outside of JetBrains. And it kind of was a natural way for me to join JetBrains to continue building awesome tools for Java developers, or JVM developers. So today I'm focusing on IntelliJ. I will show you some tips and tricks. I hope I will have time to show you some of the features that were developed specifically for developing IntelliJ, because IntelliJ developers are developing IntelliJ in IntelliJ. Surprise. And I will be like writing some Java code for you, which will be very simple, but it's not the point what kind of code I'm writing, but how I'm writing it. And I will be highlighting some of the interesting features that I hope you have seen, but probably didn't pay attention to. All right. So the very first thing that you probably already see, I'm using the new UI. Are you users of IntelliJ, everybody? Yeah, perfect. So are you using the new UI? Just a few of you who are not using the new UI. Why? Okay, actually, the development started about 2 years ago, and I haven't been switching to it for about a couple of years. Like just recently, I realized that I now am comfortable with switching to the new UI and without thinking actually what is happening there. But well, the themes is an important topic, and sometimes people argue why I'm using the light theme. I do use the light theme, but I also use the dark theme sometimes, and I switch between them very easily from this menu, like this, right? So this quick access switch actually lets me to configure my workbench as I want. And navigate through the IDE with the shortcuts is not problem at all for me. Like I can open the project view and so on. And maybe you already noticed that I don't really have tabs. So I do have a current file open, but I don't have many files open. And sometimes people are like surprised why, how do you navigate and how do you keep track of all the files you have opened? And actually, this is not my default view. My default view is like this, where I don't have anything. That's more pleasant. No clutter. And still, like with a couple of shortcuts, you can get around, like Command E gets you almost everywhere that you usually need, like to the different files, different views, and open the project tree is just as easy as just one shortcut. Okay, let's close it and still keep the workbench open. I'm going to start writing the code now. Navigation was easy. How do I start a program. What do I need? Talk to me. A main method, right? How do I write a main method? PSVM. You are long-time IntelliJ users because actually we have main as well. It was added a few years ago because so many people were saying it's illogical to have the abbreviation. Main is the thing you should think of, right? Main is there. Okay, fine. Our task will be to read a file line by line and do something with the lines. So how do I read the file, a text file, line by line? What do I need? Anybody? Are you Java developers? No? Okay, like a scanner or a buffered reader. Like, let's do it with a buffered reader because I then can show you more stuff. Buffered reader, by the first letters, I can autocomplete the type. What is the hardest problem in computer science? Names. So IntelliJ does it for you. Equals, what do I need? Like, I need either new keyword or IntelliJ, if I ask politely, it gives me the completion with one like stroke. I need a buffered reader. So what I need in the buffered reader is probably a file reader, and it already knows that I've been writing this code previously. Pay attention to this part here. There are small icons. The star, that is probably the most relevant autocompletion in my case right now. And there is some like up arrows and down arrows. And this is ranging because this list is being sorted with some machine learning autocompletion feature in IntelliJ that is enabled, not enabled by default, but you can do that in the settings. And it kind of sorts depending on how I write code. It remembers stuff, it learns, and it next time suggests me a better completion. So new file maybe, yeah. And maybe we're gonna do it doesn't fit the screen, so I'm on purpose I'm doing it like this right now. So lines, I do have a file like this, and now the my cursor is standing somewhere in the end of the file, end of the line, and there is a compilation error, right? This is highlighted red. What do I do? How do I fix it? Sorry? Context actions, how do I call it? Alt-enter, right? You are referring to Alt-enter. Alt-enter driven development is a way to go. The thing is, it works like differently depending where your cursor is. So if I hit Alt-enter right now, it will suggest me to do something different, not to fix the file reader error. And why is it like not compiling? It's it's not handled, the exception is not handled properly, right? So I need to get my cursor in there. How do I do that? Okay, like I can grab my cursor, click, and do the thing, or I can use the arrows one by one and still hit the Alt-enter, or I can quickly navigate to the issue and using F2, my cursor jumps there, and then immediately I can actually either hit Alt-enter or choose to use a quicker action, Alt option Shift Enter basically chooses the first option from the possible combinations of fixing the issue, right? So it will not be suggesting you, hey, there is a list of things you can do in this place, but it will immediately fix the thing. In this case, we need error handling. So there is a try catch option, and there's another way of dealing with it. So we're going to do it properly, like this. Now we fix the error. And in fact, we have a warning in the file as well. I don't know if it reflects in the screen, but this new file is redundant and it's highlighted as gray. So if I don't have any errors in the file, if I use F2 again, it will actually jump to the warnings. Now, I'm not going to remove it. Instead, I'm going to show you the extract variable action that is, it works nicely with these nested structures. I'm going to extract it like this and keep it for now. So we've been writing this line of code from left to right. And there is another option how we probably do that is writing the right-hand side of the expression first and then get the left-hand side of the expression. So I'm going to read the lines one by one into an array list. That's my favorite data structure. Array list of strings. Okay. And now I have two options. I can jump to the end of the line and type something like var and extract the variable immediately, or I could have used extract variable refactoring as I did before in the previous line. So it suggests me the name of the variable. I'm happy with that. Done. Right now we are going to read line by line. So I'm gonna need a line, a temporary line, where I read every line from the file and before adding it into the strings list. So in a loop, I'm going to do this. I'm going to assign the line and read somehow this line from the file. What kind of API do I need to use to read a line from the buffer reader? Read line, of course, but what if I don't know? Read. And IntelliJ knows that, hey, there's a reader, first because it matches the name, and also there's read line, and obviously you probably want to read the line because you're going to assign it to a string. We are in this context, and IntelliJ understands that and tells me, okay, please use this one. Okay, it shouldn't be null because we're going to read it until the end of the file. And now we are again in this situation that something does not compile. What we do, F2 or Shift F2, because we're gonna go backwards. We can do that as well. Alt Enter. What's gonna happen? It tells me that you have file not found exception. We're not gonna duplicate it. We're gonna optimize it a little bit for you. So I'm gonna replace it with IO exception and go here. So here comes my favorite auto-completion that is only available for Java, not available for Kotlin, and I'm insisting that the team adds it. Finally, I've been asking it for 5 years now. So normally, how do you call completion? You either start typing and the IDE suggests you something based on the context, or you force the completion to happen and strike the shortcut, either command space or command shift space for the smart completion. Another way of doing it is that, so imagine I have initialized the line by reading the line from the file. Now I need to put this line into the strings array. So array list. So I'm going to type s.a, and it tells me by the first letter, hey, there is a S, something that starts with S in the context, and there is a method that starts with A, and probably you have used this API before. So I'm going to arrange it at the first place for you. Here it comes. So we just add a line. That's it. Now we are standing before the brace, before the closing brace. Here comes the funny part. How can you put a semicolon at the end of the line? There are multiple ways. Like you can just move and put the semicolon in there. You can call out the statement completion action, Command Shift Enter, or in this specific situation, and sometimes in different contexts, I think Tagir can give more examples about that. I know just a few. In this specific situation, if I want to put a semicolon, there is no way I want to put it in this place, but rather on the next position. So if I just hit semicolon, it's going to move the cursor and put the semicolon right there immediately. Now, let's do another trick. So I'm reading the lines, and lines might be empty, might be not empty. They are not null already. And I want to make a check, like an if statement around this statement that I have right now in front of me in the same line. So there is an action to surround with something. Command Option T for me, but maybe in different K maps it might be a different shortcut. So I want to surround it with if and write a condition right there. So the line must be valid line, and it must not be empty. Is empty. If I do it like this, if I just complete it, it will be incorrect because I'm gonna be adding just empty lines, right? I need to put a exclamation mark in the beginning. So now, if I just hit completion, I need to go to the beginning of this statement, of this predicate, and put this exclamation mark. Or I can finish this completion by hitting the exclamation mark. It's going to finish the completion and put the exclamation mark in the beginning and return the cursor to the end of the expression, like this. Cool. So let's make a check. Who have learned something? Not everybody yet, seems, but I hope by the end of the talk you will have learned something new. So let's extract. Let's extract it into a method. There will be a validation rule. Not a boolean is valid, for instance. And how do we validate lines? For instance, I decide that this line must be structured somehow. What would you use to validate a content of the line? Regex, of course. Let's do that. I'm going to cheat. I'm not going to type the regular expression, but I have a live template for that. Who are using live templates? Everybody, because you knew about PSVM, right? PSVM is actually a live template you generated, but not too many people know that they exist and you can customize them and how you can customize them. So in fact, you can call the list of live templates Command J and get the full list in front of you, and you can actually search, for instance, iterate, and it searches by the description, the full list, and you can choose whatever you want. But I have created a custom one. So if you have something like, let's say, a line or a snippet of code like this, you can just call Shift and do save as live template. And it's going to add the snippet of code for you for the specific context. You can configure it in different way. You can decide, okay, it must be an expression and a statement, or you can actually create a declaration as well and reformat the code and assign some abbreviation, like something like if, like this. And next time you need it, you're going to call this pattern expanded, and the code will be generated for you. So this is exactly what I did for this next statement. I'm adding the pattern. Sorry. Here it comes. And the imports are added automatically because the IntelliJ knows that I'm going to need this pattern right there. What next? I do have I have the expression right here, and for some reason it's highlighted. Right? It's not just a string, but IntelliJ understands something is going on there. Probably it's a regular expression. How does it know it? Because IntelliJ integrates with some of the APIs and it knows it works. It's working with Java regular expressions, and the string inside this call is a regular expression. So it's not just a string. We can do something with it. For instance, we can check the regular expression. And since I'm using groups in this regular expression, it will highlight which group is matching which part of this string. Right? That's cool. Nice. Did you know about it? Some of you. Yeah, nice. And I hope it will be useful for the others. So what else? We need a matcher. We need a matcher. No. like this. And now probably I can call, yeah, I called chain completion. So the completion action gives you this list, just normal completion. There is also smart completion that will check, aha, there's something else that you can do with this surrounding context, like the pattern variable, and there is a matcher method that returns this type for you. Then just by calling this shortcut, it's not going to complete the variable and let you to type, further. It just completes what I exactly need. So the matcher, and I need the line, and now what else? The valid line is the one that matches, right? So let it be something like find. No. Matcher, and fine. Good. So it's gonna work, I hope. So what else we are going to do? Let's print out the lines, strings that we have read from the file, and we filtered them and so on. So I'm going to use the postfix completion again to generate the statement, and we are fine. It's gonna work, I hope. Let's run the application. It compiles, it runs, it prints out the result. But let's inspect what the program is doing. Maybe we could convert it to a fancier version of Java, something like a collect statement, and maybe try with resources, something like this. It feels better. Now, and maybe I don't want to have this file like on a separate line. Let it be like this, and I'm going to remove the extra declaration. So we have a stream, and stream chains came to be in Java when? In Java 8 in 2014, and since then people started to write those lengthy expressions in one line, and then figuring out that when they need to debug them, it's pretty hard. They have to break the lines into separate lines to put a breakpoint. So let's talk about debugger a little bit. We're gonna set the breakpoint. We're gonna start the debugger. Sorry. Did I hit? No. Alt enter. Yeah, debug the application and start at the stop at the breakpoint. I hope it will stop. I'm using the EAP version of IntelliJ. Sometimes it crashes, so that's the coding. Anyways, we stopped at the breakpoint, and now we want to analyze what is happening. And there are normal step actions like step over, step into, and so on. And if you want to do a step into action, then how does the IDE know where to step into? We have multiple invocations on the same line, like lines, filter, is valid, collect, to list. So if I do a step into, I'm going to be presented with a choice. Which one do I want to select? And the first choice will be not the first expression, not the lines invocation, but actually this is valid call. Why? Because it's my application code. So I'm going to jump into that function, and nice, it's there. I have kind of jumped into this location. I could have set the breakpoint right in this method, but it's just like a different way of doing the same thing. If we start over, there's a bit more efficient way of debugging such change, because if you try to debug different parts of this chain, you are not getting the full picture of how the data flows through this kind of stream APIs. Instead, we have this action called trace current stream chain. So if you call that, it's going to evaluate the expression, and it's going to visualize how the data is actually flowing through this chain. And you will see that, hey, this value is not going to proceed to the next stage. And then we have a final result of that as well. Currently, I'm showing you a view of the values that are primitives, right? They are strings. Sometimes you work with data objects, and data objects might have a complex structure. For this kind of cases, you either need a nice toString method, which might not be always the case, or you can create your own renderer for these views and select which parts of that object could be put on the top level, let's say. Right. Any questions, by the way? How much time do you have? Anyone? No? Okay, fine, I proceed. Let's do something else. Let's select this and put it into a separate method first. It's going to be a static method, and always it's previewed for you. So let's do something like get strings, whatever. And it's going to be an API. And I'm going to move this strings method into a different class. So let it be a reader. I have a reader class somewhere else in a different module. And I'm going to move this isValid function as well with this method, so that in the application class, we're going to have just the main method and invoke this utility method from a different module. So I'm even moving the code between different modules right now, not just between different classes. Refactor. And we have this get strings. Now, what is missing here is that get strings is going to read the file always from the lines.txt, and this is probably not what I want. I want this parameter to be a parameter for this API, right? I can do it immediately by hitting like this expression, like what was it? Sometimes I don't even remember the shortcuts. I just remember them in my hands. So if you have noticed, I have like on this bottom screen, when I hit the shortcut, it shows you this little pop-up, which shortcut I actually hit. So, and it immediately moves it into a parameter, but it also changes the call site. So if I navigate to the call site again, back to the application, the lines txt is already there. So it added it to the call site as well. That's nice. Let's get back to our application logic and back to the validation part. We are using the groups part, and we probably can extract the information, not just validate it, but also extract the data from the string. So in Java, we have to call the matcher first to execute the match and then validate what kind of groups we have. So if I extract the variables, it's matches. Sorry? Scroll up a little bit. I can do it like this. Visible? No? Nice. Great. So once we call the find, it matches the string. If the string matches, then we probably can call the groups and count the groups, how many groups we have, or like how many parts we actually have after matching the string. So count. Sorry, it's not the one. Matcher count. Group count should be 3 because we have 3 groups in there. Extract has 3 groups, and then we're gonna validate if it matches and has 3 groups, and then we can do the following: get each group from the matcher, right? Matcher group, and call it city. Extract. And then if we extract, we're going to introduce a variable, and IntelliJ knows immediately, like it guesses, of course, it doesn't know. Probably you want to name this variable a city, right? I do. And then I have 3 others, 2 other groups, which is called state and area code, but I'm too lazy to repeat this process again. I'm just going to copy the lines, and instead of replacing each symbol again, like with state like this, and just move the cursor again and type state again, I'm going to select the first appearance under the cursor and the next appearance under the cursor, and edit it in two places. And the same with the other one, area code, like this. Now I can create the object. Let's call it, sorry, I didn't switch off the other cursor. Return new data. Let's call it the city, the state, the area code. Complete the statement and return null from here if we didn't match it, and probably we need to return something else as not the Boolean, right? And it's not valid anymore, but it's to data. So we implemented the conversion logic instead of filtering. So map to data. No? Help me. Okay, probably I need to do something else, like reader to data. No? Oh, correct. Thank you very much. And the type of list right there as well. Good. Immediately it tells me that there's one related problem, and let's navigate there. Of course, we're gonna fix it. So we have re-implemented the logic of our application, and let's debug it again, because like, how do you analyze it? Let's hit the breakpoint, set the breakpoint, and start the application. Sorry. Yeah, like this. It runs, it hits the breakpoint, and we can step, over the different lines and see how the values are changing and how APIs are behaving. But sometimes we need more. Sometimes there is a lot of code, a lot of data. Yes, the IDE shows us hints on the right-hand side. Then we have different views, the stack trace. But if we proceed, sometimes we can analyze the code depending on the values that are available only on the debug session, right? And now, I hope you can see it. The block that extracts the values became gray, so this code will not be executed, and because one of the values will not evaluate to true, right? And exactly, there's a reason, like matches, this string just doesn't match. And nice, we immediately in the debugger can see that this piece of code is not executing for this specific data set. Okay, let's do something else. Let me stop the debugger. So I was talking about regex, and I told you that IntelliJ knows that regex is a structured element for IntelliJ. And in fact, you can put many different things into strings and tell the IDE that, hey, this string has some specific syntax. Let's try doing something like this. What do you put in strings normally in your applications? Logs, right? Do you write SQL statements in strings? Sometimes, right? Some people would say that you're gonna use JPA, but then JPA is also using different APIs, and one of them is using strings. So let's say that we are writing some SQL code into a string. Select, I don't know, all from dual. Do you know what it's going to evaluate to? If you execute this kind of SQL statement on Oracle database, what is going to return? Sorry? No, it will execute and it will return a value. 1. It's going to evaluate to 1 without actually returning it as a column, just 1. Anyways, it's just for an example, right? Currently, it's just a string, but we can hit Alt-Enter and say inject language or reference. And currently, immediately out of the box, IntelliJ wouldn't know that. Probably could guess that select something from something is rather SQL, but you're going to be explicit and tell it which SQL you want to have. You can choose to have like different dialect of a different database or just a generic one, generic SQL statement. Let's keep generic. So currently, the reference that, or the fact, the information about the string when I selected to inject the language is stored in project settings, and there are multiple ways of keeping this information around. So currently, it's enabled temporarily. The next time your colleagues are going to check out the project, they are not going to see this. They will have to do it again. The other way is to, let me reverse it, is when you're injecting the language, is to say, hey, enable the annotation. But then annotation is another dependency, a code dependency, and you might not like it, although it doesn't do anything bad because it's only compile time thing. The other way of doing it is just using a comment, language equals SQL. And it immediately IntelliJ understands that it's a SQL statement, and we can even tie it to a database instance if we have configured the connection. I do have it. Like on the side, I have database tool window like this. So H2 custom database, and there is an empty schema. So if I run the query in console, it actually is going to execute and return 1 to me as promised. I didn't know that H2 actually supports this kind of from dual query. Anyways, so we immediately from the code, we can validate those strings and get the results and compare the different results like side by side. Another interesting example is using strings. Some people do that for HTML. In fact, you can inject anything there, any language, and say that there's a piece of Java code and have all the completions again for that string. But let's see what it can do for HTML specifically. It's a structured format, right? No, I'm going to do it like this, language HTML. And how do we create HTML documents? HTML head, title, and we need some body statement. Now, if I expand it, I get this snippet of code generated immediately. This is called emmet. This feature is called emmet. So you can use this kind of expressions in IntelliJ, either in the files or the strings that are annotated with the language annotation, to generate this kind of structural documents or structured formats. In fact, writing this kind of big strings might be not very convenient, so I can choose to edit the HTML fragment somewhere in a separate window and even reformat it, and it will reformat it in my source code as well. So what else we can do here? For instance, I want to generate a table with a few rows and a few columns. tr, 3 columns, td, 3 rows and 2 columns, for instance, and expand the expression, it will be generated immediately for me. All right, that's just a nice trick. Maybe not everybody will be using it, but anyways, interesting to know. Let's remove all that, or even not remove, but rather hide. For instance, we can hide any block of code that is even not really within one function or a file. It can intersect with different syntactical elements and say that, hey, this region should be hidden, and I'm going to call it, let's say, fields, whatever, and hide it like this, so it doesn't get in the way when I'm working with the code. Yes, the question? Yes. Yeah, it must be, because it's a syntax, right? You say that, hey, there is a Java syntax, and then you inject it into the string. Yeah, there will be inspection warning. Nice.
Open for the HTML. It also can be open for SQL. Like
Yes.
this window in formatting can be done as well.
Right. I can show you. Sorry, I'll enter. Edit. And I can execute it from here as well. Run query in console and have the same workflow. So it just depends what is more convenient for you. If you have a huge query that you want to edit right here and then reformat, then it's more convenient doing it in a separate window and then switching it off and moving back to the source code, right? All right. So these regions can be also nested. So for instance, I'm going to nest another region. Sorry. Like this. Surround with another region, like so it was SQL, right? So I have SQL inside of fields, and since I have those nested regions, they become a structured elements within a file, so I can actually navigate between them, get a menu in front of me, this, right? And since IntelliJ knows about the whole structure of the file and the project and so on, we can actually call the structured view, and you will see those comments and regions also next to the other structured elements of the file. Say, for instance, get strings to data are the members, and then we have fields region, we have nested SQL region as well for the fields. Right. By the way, if you have any questions, just interrupt me and ask more. Yes, it's also support for Kotlin. Okay, so I showed you some tricks that you could use, later, but probably I need to show you some more complicated things that the team was implementing specifically for their work. I was told that it's a dog fooding thing. Then I was trying to discover the features of IntelliJ that were created to support development of IntelliJ, and they're very specific in many cases, but some of them could be generalized to normal projects, say any web applications and so on. So there is we currently have in this project, to demonstrate it, right? We have 2 modules. One module depends on the other, right? We have this application module where we have just the main function, right? Nothing else. And then we have this API that we created that reads the lines one by one and does something with them and so on. And then to analyze the dependencies of the modules, when you have, let's say, a monolith, and you decide that you want to modularize and somehow break the big project into pieces, you need to somehow analyze the cohesion of the modules and the packages within your application. And for that, there is a feature called dependency matrix. Here it is. Under the code menu, under the analyze code section, there is the dependency matrix. What it's going to do, it's going to analyze the dependencies, what is being called from where, and visualize it and present it as a matrix. So current project is a very simple one. So we're gonna see just a simple stuff from one class to another, but I'm going to try to show you how it looks for the IntelliJ project as well, which is huge and hard to analyze immediately with one grasp. So how does it look like? We have two modules, the application module. There is application class. It shows me that there are packages. It tries to present the data in a very concise and compressed way. That's why the packages are hidden immediately, and we just see the top level elements at first. But you're gonna see the matrix, right, of all the types, all the classes, all the packages, all the modules within the project. And then if you hit something within the application, like within this matrix, it's going to change the highlights a little bit, right? In this case, for instance, under the, if I hit application, it tells me that reader and data are being used from the application class. So yellow, let me zoom out. So there is a legend tells me that yellow means that it uses. So whatever I hit in this matrix, in this case, the application class, yellow means that these two types are used within the application. And the numbers are just showing the cohesion, how many times, and so on. And from here, I can actually generate the report for all the usages of the, of those types, not just find usages as we do for a single method or a single type, but for everything that is being used from that package. Show me all the dependencies. Good. So I hit that. It actually generates the report in a different place. And it shows me all types of usages. So I have something in the declaration. I have, I'm creating a new instance. I have it as a type parameter and so on, right? Nice. For a small application like this, obviously, it's not that impressive. If you have a huge application that has been built for many years and has millions of lines of code, the matrix will be something different. Let me show you. I have a code of community edition, and there are, at the top level, there are just 3 modules, but as I expand it, it's going to explode in a good way. So for instance, here it tells me, hey, the IntelliJ module right here is dependent on, Kotlin is dependent on IntelliJ. Let me expand this slightly, and it's going to become a very huge minesweeper field. So there are different modules like for different functionalities in IntelliJ, and one that stands out is the platform. So immediately you see the full line is just blue everywhere, and obviously all the others are depending on this. So if I expand that one, you're gonna see some interesting. Sorry, can I expand it? Yeah, I did. You're gonna see a bit more cohesion within those modules and so on. So how to read this matrix? I told you about the dependency. That's most important part. But what's also very important to find in your projects is that you might have cycles, and sometimes you might not realize that you have cycles between the types, between modules, and so on. If you are using Maven or Gradle, it's virtually impossible to create cycles within modules. But if your project is like IntelliJ, it is possible, and it is possible not to notice it. So if I hit this show cycle dependencies, then it's going to actually highlight that, hey, there are some problematic places you might want to check. IntelliJ source code is huge, so we can discover some interesting places there. Right. So my time is up. I hope you learned something. I hope you discovered the features that you can use tomorrow. If you have any questions for me, come and ask me. But there are some very specific things you can learn from Tagir. I'm pointing at him. And so have a nice time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anton. I definitely learned a lot, and I guess, yeah, I need to look into a lot of new features of IntelliJ. And with that, there are actually three great news. First one is that in 10 minutes, we're going to have Florian Kistner, who's going to be in this room talking about his journey from Technical University of Munich to being a team lead at JetBrains. And in parallel, in the event space, there's going to be talk by Svetlana Isakova about state of Kotlin. Second good news, the rain has started. It is good and bad news. So good news is going to be not that warm. Bad news for the next few hours, there's like the hurricane warning and all those things. So you cannot leave the building. So you have to stay.
Keep the hostages.
Yeah, you really have to stay for the party. And the third one is 7 p.m. as I promised. And beer is over there. It's cold. There is some wine shortly and some other stuff. So we have 10 minutes to move to the place you want to be, get some beer, still some ice cream over there on the 5th floor. So see you.